Take me to the moment where it hits you that Queen Charlotte was a true fan favorite and a prequel needed to be made.
For me, Queen Charlotte was a fan favorite of mine. Like, I was a fan from the moment we saw her in that first episode when the young ladies are presenting themselves to the Queen. I mean, even that first image of her on the throne with all the ladies in waiting and that sense of power and glory and divaness was really interesting to me. And I began to really wonder, how did she get this way?
It's so funny that you mentioned that first opening scene from season 1. I will never forget episode 1, and I see this regality, this gorgeous gowns, and we're in this period drama, and I see a black woman. Shonda, what gave you the audacity to put to create such a diverse period piece and have black people in that light?
It was important to me to figure out how this universe came to be, and the way we went with it was Queen Charlotte had been there in history. There have been plenty of tales that perhaps she was a woman of color, and we took that and ran with it, and that really allowed us to populate this world in a way that felt natural, and to have her become such a favorite is fantastic. It was great to be able to take that over and write a Queen Charlotte story about her.
Just so you know, as soon as season 1 came out, I started acting different, walking different. It just does a little something to you to see you on the screen in that type of era. Why were Corey and India the perfect young Queen Charlotte and young King George for this piece, Shonda?
It was fascinating to have them because the moment, tons of people auditioned, but the moment I saw them, I knew that they were exactly what we were looking for. And they're both extremely talented. They have amazing chemistry. They have a good sense of humor, and they're layered actors. So it was exciting to get to work with them.
What is the biggest challenge, though, that you run into when creating this type of masterpiece, from like securing the right actors to securing the right location to even creating the perfect script? What does Shonda Rhimes have a difficult time or the biggest challenge with?
Well, for me, it's always the scripts. I'm very hard on myself, and I'm never sure it's perfect, and I sort of have to go with that.
Okay, so I already know who I would want to see a spinoff of next, but I want to get your opinion. In your professional expert opinion, now that we have Queen Charlotte, what character could we see have a spinoff next?
There are so many interesting characters that we could spin off, but for me, really, telling Queen Charlotte's world was a very complete story. I think that there's something to telling Violet's story, too. It's another complicated love story.
That's the one. I was like, I have Violet written down, but I want to see if you're going to say it. Gosh, it's such a beautiful love story. Fans are so intrigued by your creative process, or the mystery of it, rather. What's something that you do in that process that might shock us to learn about?
I act out loud with the tears and the drama every scene as I'm writing it. I know it's weird, but it works.
You do not do that. Seriously?
Yeah. People in my office often think, people in my office often think like, what's going on in there? But it's important to my process.
Oh, she's just writing. She's just writing. Yeah. Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder, For the People, Inventing Anna, Grey's Anatomy. I mean, I would pay an arm and a leg to learn how you come up with all of these projects. I know that we haven't had a lot of, you've had a lot of successful shows, so take me inside of your thoughts. What pressure, if any, do you face when you're creating these shows? Because each one surmounts the next.
I think, I felt a lot of pressure with Grey's. It was my first. Scandal, I felt a lot of pressure because I was putting the first woman of color in a lead role on a drama in 37 years or something. But, I got to have wonderful experiences producing How to Get Away with Murder and producing For the People and helping find that representation. And then with my, the shows I'm creating, it's natural for me. I don't feel any pressure anymore. I just am not going to tell stories any other way.
That's what I'm talking about. You're like, I've gotten to a point where it's all me, boo-boo. It's up to me. Shonda Land. A couple more questions for you before I let you go, Shonda. Do you ever draw inspiration from the fictional stories and non-fictional stories that you see on social media? Because now we've come into this age, I'm sure you've seen it, where people are creating their own small, short, TikTok shows, if you will, or Instagram story shows. Do you draw inspiration from that?
No. And I totally understand what's going on there because I think it's really exciting. For some reason, I'm not on social media as much as I was, so it's a little bit of a different world for me. But also, the stories I think of, they show up in my head. That's the only way to say it. Like, I don't even know where they're coming from. They show up in my head, and then I feel like I have to tell them.
God, you have a gift from God. It's amazing to see. It's amazing to witness, especially someone who looks like me and comes from a background like myself. Speaking of, my final question for you, you mentioned Grey's Anatomy being one of the biggest pressures or the first pressures for you. You said it on your Instagram regarding Ellen Pompeo's departure. What a ride, you said. I'm curious, with the current showrunner leaving, how long do you see the series going? And would you ever come back to the show to run it for its last season?
Oh, wow. Well, I might be a very old lady by the time we reach its last season, because it doesn't seem to be stopping, which is wonderful. I feel like the world really belongs to the fans, and the fans have been very clear about what they want. Having Ellen leave was heartbreaking for everybody, but also knowing that she can come back anytime was also important for me, to make sure that everybody understood that the door is always open for any of our past characters, really. And then, I don't know. It feels like it's such an amazing show, and it's doing so well as it's moving forward. I'm going to leave it alone and see how it goes. And we're going to stay a show as long as, I always say, as long as everybody wants to be there, and as long as the fans want to be there.
We want this show to last forever. It seems like, it's crazy. We take a left, we take a right. I'm like, okay, it's probably going to wrap up. Nope. They have something else in mind. It never wraps up. Final question for you, and this is me just being nosy. Take me to that moment where Ellen came to you and said, Shonda, I think I'm going to bow out.
Well, Ellen's an amazing person, and she and I have been having conversations the whole time. We'd just been discussing when it was time, what it was feeling like. We'd always been having those discussions, because I always wanted her to be excited and invested and enjoying herself as much as, she was at the beginning. And that was really it. I wanted her to get to explore new creative things, and it was a little bit of a heartbreaking moment, but it was also a moment for me. She's not gone. Because she's coming back, I don't think of her as being gone from the show. She's still doing the voiceover. She's still there.